Whew, I'm dirty. I didn't realize how much paint I had on me. Well, we're gonna go ahead and get as far as we can tonight. It's late enough now that I don't want to make noise and bother the neighbors. So I'm not gonna do anything crazy, but we can start to just bolt in the suspension. I may not even tighten the bolts tonight, but we'll just get them in. So I've put this Moride equalizer in here, this CRE 3000. This has the rubber dampening system to cushion the ride a little. This camper originally had shocks. Some people put them on. I didn't really want to. So we're going with this instead. So I've got that, and then let me grab our shackles here. So the leaf spring is going to bolt directly into the back here, and then it's going to have shackles to connect it to the equalizer. So I started to put this in. These come with these little brass bushings as opposed to the plastic ones that are more typical when you buy these leaf springs. The plastic ones are junk. Honestly, the brass ones are junk too. I put these in, and 5,000 miles later, they're worn through on the side that bears the weight. So I don't have an awful lot of confidence in these, but I do just go ahead and put them in because we've got them. So why not? I'm realizing as I'm doing this, the axles have to sit on top of this. It might be a little bit of a challenge to get the axles in here once this is fully installed. I think they'll fit. I think I'm gonna go ahead and do it. Worst case, I'll take out this back bolt to drop that down, but I think that'll work. Okay, so there's one in. All right, well, this thing keeps flipping over on me here, but the way this will sit is like that. And that will get us approximately, if all the research I did was right, this will get us approximately to the ride height of the old setup. We're gonna find out, I guess, but I'm gonna go ahead and go over and do this on the other side, and then I'll see where my energy's at. Maybe we'll see if we can wrestle the axles in here tonight too. It's the next morning. I just went through and tightened everything up from last night. Everything still looks great. This paint is hardening really well. It feels really good. So I haven't really tried to scratch it, but just running my fingernail across it, it just slides across. So I think this is hardening the way it should, which is great news. I've got all the U-bolts and everything bolted down. The next step here is going to be the brakes. So let me show you what we're working on here. We've got these new backing plates, they're called. Essentially what that means is just it's a complete unit, all the brakes, all the springs. If you've ever installed drum brakes, you know that they are kind of a bear, or they can be a bear to install. So my only kind of question here, this is usually pretty simple, just 5 bolts. On a modern axle, there are studs that are hammered into the back, something like this. It's got a little knurl, I guess is the word, edge there that catches. Problem is on the back of this axle, it's not totally flat. And so I tried to put this one in here and it went in on an angle. So I think what I'm gonna have to do is just kind of do one at a time and do them carefully. And as I put them in, I'll probably just put a bolt on them once they're in a little bit. And just kind of start piecing together piece by piece here. All right, so we got that in. So now we're just gonna do it 5 more times. all the brakes bolted down, and I just went through and I did what's called packing the bearings with grease, which just means you smear a bunch of grease in it. I also hammered out the old bearing races in the drums, put new ones in, and I put new grease seals on the back. Got the front bearing greased and ready to go here. You're gonna see when I move here, I've done the one behind me already. I wanted to make sure everything was gonna fit okay, and it did. Everything worked really well. So let me show you how we put this on. All right, so this is a new seal, this kind of yellow gold colored thing here. Inside of this is our inner bearing that's been greased, has new bearing races. I didn't film all that. There's lots of videos on how to do that. It's basically the same as any modern trailer. It's not that exciting. And so we slip this on here. This surface on here is where the inner bearing race rides on. And then this other smooth surface is where that grease seal sits. This surface here on the front is the outer bearing, which I have on the ground here. And so that gets put in after. One other thing too, I learned on the last one that I need to adjust this a little bit. I'm glad I looked because this tensioner actually has popped off on this one. Brake shoe is also out of alignment. Probably why it didn't look right. Yep, that's better. Oh, that makes me feel better. Now it looks right. If the drum won't fit over the spindle, it's either out of adjustment or it's just plain not right, and that's what happened there. That's what caught my eye. Okay, so that's on. You can hear a little bit of drag on the brakes, which is fine. They're adjusted all the way in. So now we're going to take our inner bearing. This is covered in grease. You can see this is tapered, and so we put the skinnier side in. Goes around that bearing race. Put that in there, and then we have a washer, goes in there, and we have a nut that goes in there. Okay, so this is where I've gone wrong with these installs before, just on my other trailers. If this isn't tight enough, the whole wheel will wobble. And so there's kind of some different strategies here. I like to snug it down, not too crazy, and spin it a bunch to help the bearings kind of make sure they're seated. So it's really not wobbling. That feels pretty good. I just looked online again because I just recently had an issue with this where I had one come loose and it was okay, nothing happened, but when I went to do maintenance on it, I discovered it, and the bearings were pretty trashed on that one. All right, and then we've got some new caps here. I'll get a block of wood for that. Okay, this side is done. This is ready to get wheels on it now. It's ready to go. I will note that I have to wire these so they actually have brakes. We're not doing that today, but we'll get to that. All right, let's do the other side. All right, so now what I've got to figure out, my shackles are facing the wrong way, and I think this is going to be probably a little tough to flip these with all this weight on it now, but it's got to be done before it goes on the ground. So what I'm going to see is if I can maybe get under this with my leg and flip it up. If not, probably have to get a jack involved. Yeah, I'm going to have to use a jack. I'm going to try to flip these before I put the wheels on, and then we'll get them on. That's sort of staying up there, so I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. see if we can get away with just the 2 straps here. Maybe I'll throw the wheel in here real quick and see if it drops. Yeah, we'll see. Well, all the wheels are on. We had a little boo-boo here. The tabs on this drum broke off. You can see how it's supposed to look here. The powder coating on the inside edge was so thick there was a glob in there, and when the wheel was pushing against it, it just cracked it right off. So that's a bummer. I'm gonna have to see if I can find another drum and maybe talk to my powder coater about redoing this. He had said he put a bunch on to try to smooth out the texture, but unfortunately, I think that was what caused this issue. So I went through and I filed out all the other ones, but unfortunately, that's where we're at on that. So probably safe to drive home, but not taking any long trips. So anyway, everything else is on. I got the jack up on the front. Tires are all on. The shackles are flipped the right way. I'm running short on time, and I'm gonna see if I can get this on the ground real quick. All right, so that's a wrap for the suspension. The brakes, they're all on. This thing's on the ground. In the next video, we're gonna tow it back to my house and we're gonna start getting this thing ready to put underneath the body. This thing's coming along.